The thing about the scarecrow wasn't that it looked scary. It was the math. Elias knew for a fact that the south field was exactly 30 rows deep from the porch to the tree line. He knew this because he had measured it yesterday, stepping over the dry, gray furrows of dead earth with the meticulous annoyance of a man trying to calculate property value. The scarecrow, a towering, wretched thing wearing a rotting tuxedo, had been planted at the very edge, right against the woods, 30 rows away, a safe, distant speck of burlap and malice. But as Elias stood on the porch this morning, gripping his mug of stale instant coffee, the steam curling against the cold glass of the sliding door, the math didn't add up. He counted again. 1, 2, 3. His breath hitched. He wiped the condensation from the glass, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He counted a third time, desperate for his eyes to be lying, desperate for the hangover of stress and debt to be playing tricks on him. 27. Overnight, while Elias slept behind locked doors, the thing had moved 3 rows closer. It hadn't walked. There were no footprints in the soft silt. It was simply there, standing rigid and faceless, the black holes of its empty sleeves fluttering in a wind that didn't exist. It was waiting, and by Elias's calculation, at a rate of 3 rows a night, he had exactly 10 days before that faceless burlap sack was standing in the living room with him. Chapter 1. The notification on Elias's phone screen was succinct. Payment overdue. Final notice. It was the 3rd final notice this week. The guys Elias owed money to weren't the type to send polite letters with return envelopes. They were the type who broke kneecaps first and asked for wire transfers second. Yeah, I'm working on it, Elias muttered, swiping the notification away with a thumb calloused from 10 years of carpentry work that had gone nowhere. He tossed the phone onto the passenger seat of his beat-up Ford F-150 and gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. The gravel road beneath his tires was less of a road and more of a suggestion, a rutted washboard track winding through the deepest, darkest armpit of the rural countryside. Dust, thick and tasting of copper, billowed up behind the truck, choking out the afternoon sun. This was it, the Hail Mary play. His grandfather, a man Elias hadn't spoken to in 15 years, had finally done the decent thing and died, leaving behind a farmhouse and 40 acres of land in the middle of nowhere. Elias didn't care about the family legacy. He didn't care about the memories. He saw the peeling white paint and the overgrown fields and saw only one thing: equity. If he could slap a coat of paint on the siding, patch the roof, and clear the yard, he could flip this place to some naive city couple looking for the cottagecore lifestyle. He needed 50 grand to clear his debts. This rotting pile of lumber had to be worth at least 80. The trees cleared, revealing the property. It sat in a valley that felt unnaturally silent, like the air had been sucked out of it. The farmhouse was a 2-story Victorian, or at least it had been before rot and neglect turned into a gray skeleton. The windows were clouded cataracts staring blindly at the overgrown driveway. But it was the smell that hit Elias first as he stepped out of the truck. Not the smell of manure or hay, but something sharper, wet ozone and old wet wool. Fixer-upper, Elias said aloud, trying to force his contractor persona to the forefront. Good bones, just needs some curb appeal. He grabbed his toolbox from the truck bed. He was reaching for his pry bar when a voice dry as grinding stones scraped behind him. "You ain't supposed to be here, boy." Elias jumped, spinning around and nearly swinging the heavy metal toolbox. Standing by the corner of the porch was a woman who looked like she'd been carved out of the same gray wood as the house. She was tiny, withered, wearing a floral dress that hadn't been in style since the Nixon administration. A double-barreled shotgun leaned casually against her hip, looking as natural as a walking cane. Jesus, lady, Elias exhaled, hand over his heart. You trying to give me a heart attack? Heart attack would be a mercy compared to what this soil does, the old woman said. She didn't blink. Her eyes were milky, covered in the film of age, yet she seemed to be looking right through his skin to the terrified man beneath. I'm Widow Gable from the next parcel over. Your granddaddy told me I might come sniffing around like a rat after cheese. Elias straightened up, brushing the dust off his jeans. He put on his best city smile, the one he used when explaining to clients why their renovation was 3 weeks late. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Gable. I'm Elias. I'm the new owner, just here to fix the place up, get it ready for sale.
The Widow Gable spat on the ground. The spittle sizzled slightly on the dry earth. Sale? You can't sell what's already owned. Look, the deed is in my name, Elias said, his patience thinning. The sun was going down and he wanted to get the generator running before dark. My grandfather passed away. It's probate law, standard stuff. He didn't pass, Gable said, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried too far in the still air. He ran out of time. He stopped watching. She pointed a gnarly finger toward the back of the house. The south field. You checked it yet? Elias frowned. I just got here. Don't go out there at night, she said flatly, and don't you break the line. The pact is blood for soil, boy. Your granddaddy held it back for 50 years, but he got weak. He got tired. Okay, look, I appreciate the welcome wagon, Elias interrupted, picking up his toolbox, but I've got a lot of work to do. Roofing, electrical, I don't really have time for ghost stories. Widow Gable stared at him for a long moment. Then she picked up her shotgun. She didn't aim it at him, but the threat was clear. It ain't a ghost, Elias Thorne. Ghosts are memories. What's in that field is hungry. You stay inside once the sun drops. If you hear scratching at the door, you don't answer it. She turned and walked away, moving with a surprising speed for her age, disappearing into the tall sawgrass that bordered the property. Crazy old bat, Elias muttered. He shook his head, trying to shake off the chill that had settled at the base of his spine. Just what I need, neighbors tanking the property value with their insanity. He walked around the side of the house to inspect the foundation. That was when he saw the south field. It was distinct from the rest of the property. The other fields were overgrown with chaotic weeds and briars, but the south field was barren dirt, arranged in perfect, obsessive furrows. Nothing grew there, not a single blade of grass. It was just rows of gray earth stretching out to the dense black pine forest. And there, at the very back edge, standing sentinel against the trees, was the scarecrow. Elias shaded his eyes against the setting sun. It was hideous. Most scarecrows were stuffed with hay and dressed in flannel. This one wore a formal tuxedo jacket, the tails tattered and stained with mold. The head was a lumpy burlap sack, tied tight at the neck with a piece of thick rope. There was no face painted on it, no eyes, no smile, just a blank canvas surface. Creepy, Elias admitted. He pulled out his phone to take a picture for the before listing, but the camera app glitched, the screen fracturing into static for a split second before crashing. Great. Perfect. He shoved the phone back in his pocket. He walked up to the edge of the porch. The contractor in him needed to quantify things. He needed to know the square footage of the yard. He looked at the scarecrow, then down at the rows of dirt. 1, 2, 3, he counted aloud, pointing a finger at each ridge of earth. He counted all the way to the tree line. 30 rows, he noted. Okay, that's what, 200 feet? Decent backyard. He looked at the scarecrow again. The wind picked up, and the empty sleeves of the tuxedo flapped. It looked like it was waving at him, mocking him. "You're the first thing to go, buddy," Elias called out to the effigy. "Bonfire tomorrow night." The scarecrow didn't answer. It just stood there, absorbing the dying light. Elias turned his back on the field and forced the back door open. The interior of the farmhouse smelled like time itself had curdled. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light cutting through the boarded windows. The furniture was covered in white sheets, looking like muffled ghosts in the gloom. Elias spent the next hour doing a cursory walkthrough. It was bad, but salvageable. The floorboards were solid oak under the grime. The banister was hand-carved. If he worked 18-hour days, he could have it listing in a week. He just needed to stay focused, ignore the silence, ignore the feeling that the house was holding its breath. He set up his base of operations in the kitchen. He swept off the heavy wooden table and set down his lantern, his portable stove, and a sleeping bag. That was when he saw the book. It was sitting in the center of the table, as if someone had placed it there moments before he arrived. It was a heavy, leather-bound ledger, the kind farmers used to track feed prices and harvest yields. Elias opened it. The handwriting was his grandfather's, spiky, aggressive script that dug deep into the paper. But it wasn't a financial ledger. October 1st, row 50, still holding. October 2nd, row 50, put down the salt. October 3rd, row 50, it watched me through the window today. Elias frowned, flipping forward. The dates spanned years. Every day, an entry.
November 12th, 1998, row 48. I blinked. God help me, I blinked. July 4th, 2005, row 42. It doesn't like the fireworks. It moved back one. The hell is this? Elias whispered. He flipped to the very end, to the entries from just last week. The handwriting had become shaky, erratic, stained with what looked like dried blood. Monday, row 33. I can't walk anymore. The leg is gangrenous. Tuesday, row 32. Gable won't help. She says the debt is mine. Wednesday, row 31. It smells my fear. The ozone smell is in the house. Thursday, row 30. I'm sorry, Elias. I'm so sorry. I'm leaving it to you. You have to watch. You have to watch or it comes inside. The journal ended there. The rest of the pages were blank. Elias slammed the book shut. "Dementia," he said, his voice loud in the empty kitchen. "Old man lost his marbles, probably measuring imaginary invisible friends." He stood up, pacing the kitchen floor. He was a rational man. He dealt in lumber, nails, and drywall. He dealt in interest rates and foreclosure notices. He did not deal in cursed agricultural journals. Outside, the wind began to howl, a low, mournful sound that rattled the window panes in their loose frames. Night had fallen completely. The darkness outside the sliding glass door was absolute. Elias fired up his camping stove to boil water for noodles, trying to drown out the silence with the hiss of gas. He turned on his battery-powered lantern, creating a small bubble of harsh white light. He ate his dinner standing up, his back to the glass door. He refused to turn around. He refused to look at the south field. Row 30, the journal had said. That matched his count. A coincidence. The old man probably obsessively counted the rows for planting and hallucinated the rest. Elias unrolled his sleeping bag on the cleanest patch of floor. He checked his phone. No signal, of course. Just get through the night, he told himself. Tomorrow you rip up the floorboards, check the plumbing, and call a realtor from town. He lay down, pulling the sleeping bag tight around his shoulders. He closed his eyes. Sleep didn't come easily. The house creaked. It wasn't the normal settling of an old structure. It sounded like footsteps. Slow, deliberate pressure on the floorboards above him. Then silence. Then a creak on the stairs. Elias sat up, clutching a hammer he'd pulled from his belt. Hello? Silence. Raccoons, he whispered. Just raccoons. He lay back down. Eventually, exhaustion won out over fear, and he drifted into a fitful, shallow sleep filled with dreams of burlap scratching against glass. He woke up to the smell of coffee. For a second, he thought he was back in his apartment in the city. Then the stiffness in his back reminded him he was on a hardwood floor in a dead man's house. The sun was up. The storm had passed, leaving the sky a brilliant, innocent blue. Elias groaned, sitting up and rubbing his face. He felt foolish for being so scared the night before. Daylight burned away the atmosphere of dread like mist. It was just an old house, just a crazy neighbor, just a sad, senile diary. He stood up and stretched, his joints popping. He needed to get to work. He walked over to the sliding glass door to unlock it and let some fresh air in. He reached for the latch, then stopped. His hand hovered over the glass. Outside, the south field was bathed in morning light. The furrows were stark shadows against the gray dirt. Elias stared. He blinked hard. The scarecrow was there. The rotting tuxedo, the burlap head, the roped neck. But it looked bigger. Elias felt a cold prickle of sweat break out on his forehead despite the morning chill. He pressed his face against the glass. No, he whispered. No way. He started to count. He didn't want to, but his brain forced him to do it. 1, 2, 3. He counted the ridges of dirt between the porch and the scarecrow's feet until 27, 28, 29, 30. Elias stopped. He recounted. Maybe he skipped one. Maybe the angle was weird. 1:27. Elias backed away from the glass door as if it were hot to the touch. He grabbed the journal from the table and flipped it open, his hands shaking so badly he almost tore the page. Thursday, row 30. Elias looked back out the window. The scarecrow stood motionless, but the tuxedo jacket was facing the house now. Yesterday, it had been facing the woods. And in the soft soil of row 28, row 29, and row 30, the dirt was completely undisturbed. No footprints, no drag marks. It hadn't walked. It had simply ceased to exist at row 30 and re-existed at row 27. Elias grabbed his keys. He needed to leave. He needed to drive into town, get a signal, maybe buy a chainsaw. He yanked the front door open and froze. His truck was where he left it, but the driveway wasn't. The storm last night hadn't just been wind. A massive, ancient oak tree from the edge of the property had come down, crushing the small wooden bridge that spanned the creek, the only way back to the main road. The truck was blocked in.
Elias was trapped. And from the backyard, the wind shifted, carrying the sound of dry, rustling corn husks, even though there was no corn for miles.